A racetrack inside a volcano. The concept sounds like something from the mind of an excitable child, or perhaps a video game made for one. It's the kind of fantastical hyperbole you'd use to analogize some completely unthinkable spectacle as being entirely removed from reality. Because that could never be a thing, right? Well, tell that to the Argentinians who built exactly that in the late 1970s. Yes, this is reality. No, this video is not clickbait. There is a literal racetrack inside a literal volcano. Let's explore. Near the geographic center of Argentina, you'll find the San Luis province. Known for its natural beauty, agriculture, and as an emerging wine-growing and tourism region, the capital city of the same name is also a hub for commerce. Our interests lie a few miles northwest of the city of San Luis, where we find a small mountain resort town. The road that connects this settlement to the city in the south encircles a picturesque lake that is, in fact, the middle of the caldera of an extinct volcano. And in the late 1970s, that loop of tarmac winding, climbing, and twisting its way around the edge of this ancient crater was turned into something like Argentina's take on a combination of Spa-Francorchamps and the Circuit de Monaco for you F1 fans. Circuito Potrero de las Funes, if you'll forgive my pronunciation, was completed as a semi-permanent street circuit in 1978 to host rounds of Argentina's legendary Turismo Carretera, the longest continuously contested racing series in the world. It served that purpose until tragedy struck in 1987 with several racing deaths, leading to it being removed from the calendar for a full 2 decades. Resurrected in 2008 with heavy modifications for safety and paddock infrastructure, the revised Potrero de las Funes circuit was thrust into the limelight, hosting several rounds of the FIA GT1 World Championship up through 2011. The San Luis 2 Hours in 2008 marked the first ever South American stop in FIA GT Championship history, won by Pekka Racing in a Saleen S7R from a grid featuring names like Emmanuel Collard and Tony Vilander of global sports car racing renown. The track itself was a star. Comparisons were drawn between the Potrero de las Funes circuit and a miniature Nürburgring Nordschleife in light of its topography following twists and turns. Heralded by some as one of the most beautiful circuits in the world, while also being called fast and challenging by those who drove it. The quick stats for Potrero de las Funes show us a 3.9 mile or 6.3 kilometer loop containing 22 to 23 turns, depending on if a chicane was used or not. But lengths and bends aren't the whole story here, because this track climbs and then falls over 300 feet from its highest point to its lowest. That's a similar elevation delta to Spa, and it's worth noting that this San Luis adjacent track was the second longest lap on the FIA GT calendar, behind only that circuit in Belgium, and even then by less than half a mile. Times for the GT1 cars were actually similar between the two tracks, so we can surmise that a lap of the Volcano sees slightly lower top speeds, but is a little more technical overall than a lap of the Belgian countryside. A race lap of the Caldera would begin on the east bank next to the large paddock area and then make the high-speed ascent up into town and around the north side of the lake, before turning south, winding across the face of the slope and then plunging down through a toge-esque series of turns to the lowest point on the track, before then climbing just as steep of a twisting slope to get back to the checkered flag. These scant few onboard laps available give some idea of the extremes seen on this circuit, as well as the dangers. Even after the 2008 modifications, the mercifully wide circuit still managed to claim cars, if not lives, during most races there, being surrounded by omnipresent jersey barriers. It is said that most great tracks have consequences, and this circuit is no exception. Teeth aside, though, drivers hailed Potrero de las Funes' challenges, and even the jaded ex-Formula One race commentators compared it to some of history's most loved street circuits, like the Targa Florio, Old Mugello, and so on. The Turismo races at the track, as well as the FIA rounds, were known to attract as many as 50,000 spectators, so it was also popular with fans. It strikes me as something like a Monaco or Long Beach on a budget. One so inclined could watch a professional race from the balcony of a luxury hotel next to a picturesque body of water, and probably actually see some overtaking as well, unlike the version in the Principality. Deserved shade thrown at Monaco there, central Argentina still isn't the European Riviera, and one of the biggest challenges for international teams in San Luis may have been getting there. Over 500 miles from Buenos Aires, and with only 150,000 souls in the city, and therefore lacking an international airport, race equipment had to be trucked in from the coast. These logistical problems were par for the course for the national TC teams, but by 2011 it may have been a big ask for the cash-strapped SRO GT1 series, and they did not return in 2012. With the collapse of the FIA GT Championship in 2012, and SRO choosing to focus on perhaps easier markets, Potrero de las Funes hasn't been back on a truly international stage since then. Still, it regularly hosted the TC 2000 series through as recently as 2018, before further use was stymied, first by COVID, then by economic downturn, and finally by political pressure. By 2023, the now disused racing circuit, with its supposedly temporary jersey barriers and catch fences still in place, had become an eyesore for a town depending on a tourism-based economy, with the natural features of this once spicy plateau as the main draw. In short, no one wanted to look at rusty catch fencing and fading sponsor logos from their lakeside Airbnb, with no offsetting surge of money and maintenance coming from regular race weekends. The latest information I can find with my limited Spanish keyword searches shows dismantling of most of the barriers and some other race-related infrastructure in 2024. Of course, it's not the first time this track has been closed, and at least this time no lives were lost as motivation. The road, of course, remains, and so does the possibility then that the preposterous proposition of a racetrack in a volcano might yet appeal to the excitable child inside someone at the FIA, IMSA, SRO, or WEC, such that we could see international racing here again. Blasting through such an idyllic landscape in a fire-breathing racer with the extra volcanic bragging rights is certainly a romantic notion that would appeal to many people. At least that's the perspective of an outsider looking in from afar. I won't pretend to know or understand the local or regional politics in Argentina, nor would I presume to make light of what may have been a long-term local struggle by those living amid a not-so-temporary track. I can imagine the uproar if F1 left Las Vegas or Miami with all the fences and stands still up. If you've made it this far and you are from San Luis, Potrero de las Funes, or Argentina in general, I'd love for you to share your perspective in the comments. Feel free to do so in the language of your choice, since technology makes translation fairly easy these days. On a personal note, it was sad to find out that this track had fallen out of favor and been closed. We haven't been there, nor do I have any individual connection to the area. However, I do have Potrero de las Funes to thank as what I would call the inspiration for this YouTube channel and video series. It remained a distant dream that, in success, one day we might get to go and drive the track at speed during an event, even if not part of the grid. I mean, imagine rocking up to the office after that weekend. What did you do on break, Richard? Did laps on a racetrack in a volcano. Thanks for watching.